Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I'm back again today doing another video. And the subject of today's video is going to be on the 2013 NBA Draft. I'm going to be basically wrapping up the Redraft series at 2013. ESPN didn't have any mock draft machines still up and around for 2014 and on, so I'm just going to stop at 2007 to 2013. So this is going to be the last one. Hope you guys have enjoyed them. Go back and rewatch the others or watch them for the first time if you haven't seen them. So just as some guidance here, I'm going to be drafting players based on what we know now compared to what we knew then. But I'm also going to be drafting players logically. Like, what I mean by this is, for instance, if the best player available is a point guard and like Cleveland is up, I'm not going to take them because they already had Kyrie Irving at the time, so it wouldn't make sense for them. So basically, what I'm saying is I'm going to take into consideration um, the situation the team was in, even though it might contradict with the best player available. So number one, Cleveland. I think from what we know now, Giannis was definitely the best player in this draft. So I'm going to say Giannis Antetokounmpo, number one overall to Cleveland, and probably drastically changes the Cavaliers' trajectory having him instead of Anthony Bennett. Number two, Orlando. So I think originally they took Victor Oladipo, and honestly, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to take him again. Really good player. Took a few years to come into his own, but again, very, very good. And I think he's a dude who um, he can kind of do a little bit of everything for a team, and I like that in a guy. So I think he's a pretty solid pick for them there. Next, it actually gets interesting because I think normally I would have just said that Washington would have taken C.J. McCollum, but they had Bradley Beal, they had John Wall, so they didn't really need that. And so I'm still looking at Otto Porter. Other options on the board that look good are Steven Adams. Um, Also looking at, let's see here, Tim Hardaway Jr. Oh, you know who it's going to be? It's going to be Rudy Gobert to Washington. Future defensive player of the year multiple times over. Very, very good player. Obviously, he's rounding into his own on offense lately as well, also, so that's something to note. And he will be a guy who's remembered for um, touching all those microphones like about a month ago, but that shouldn't overshadow how great of an NBA player he is. Charlotte at number 4. Again, a team that didn't really need a point guard. I think looking at this list, I'm trying to think of the guy that makes the most sense, honestly, for them. I guess you'd say CJ McCollum. They could have used a shooting guard at this point to pair with Kemba in the backcourt. That'd be a really bad defensive backcourt, but still, he's probably the best player available. And they had Al Jefferson, so I don't really think that they needed Steven Adams at this point either. Next, Phoenix. They did need a center at this point. They originally took Alex Len. I think Steven Adams is clearly the better choice. Very good defensive player. You can't really alley-oop it all to him, but he is kind of like that prototypical rim runner where most of his points are going to come off of pick and rolls or putbacks. Definitely an upgrade for them over Alex Len, who really was not a good player, a guy who was a complete bust in my opinion. And so, yeah, it's a pretty easy choice to pick Adams over him. New Orleans at the time they had just traded for Drew Holiday on this draft night. They traded this pick to Philly for Drew Holiday. So I'm actually going to make this pick as if it were Philly. So since they had just traded Drew, I'm actually going to say that they go with Dennis Schroeder. He's probably the best player available, and I think it makes sense that they want to replace Drew with a younger, pretty good option, and I think that is definitely Dennis Schroeder. Next, we have Sacramento, and at the time they had Cousins, they still had. Actually, let's see here. They didn't have Isaiah Thomas anymore. They didn't have Tyreek Evans anymore. I think they did have Rudy Gay, so they were looking for point guard, shooting guard, or power forward. And I think considering that, um, to me, Otto Porter makes a lot of sense. Otto Porter is a really good 3 and D player, and people forget that because his contract is so big. But when you just look at the player, not the contract, he's a very good player. 8, Detroit. Originally, they took KCP. I think that's tempting, but I think the better player at this pick is Robert Covington. Again, like Otto Porter, a very good 3 and D player. He was first team all defense, I believe, 2 seasons ago. And I think he's a guy that really will help any team. He won't be the best player on any team. He really shouldn't even be the second or third best player on any team, probably. But if he's like your fourth best guy, you're in pretty good shape. Number 9, Minnesota. I believe this pick was actually swapped with Utah, who picks at 14. So at 9, I'll pick as if I'm Utah here. They originally took Trae Young because they wanted a point guard. They had on this roster, let's see here, who did they have? They still had, they didn't have Al Jefferson anymore. This was the year where they had Hayward, they had Favors, they had really, honestly, not a ton else besides those guys. So I think they're pretty open as far as who they would have taken here. And I think, considering that, I'm going to say that they would have gone with Nerlens Noel, a pretty good defensive center. And I know it seems pretty high, but I'm looking around these other guys, and it's kind of like a push as far as who you take above him, like KCP, Cody Zeller, Kelly Olynyk, the Plumlee twin, Tim Hardaway Jr., Gorgie Jang, Alan Crabb, Andre Roberson, like all decent role players, but there's not really a distinction between any of them as far as being like overtly better than the others. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Noel. At number 10 for Portland, at the time um, they had basically a pretty solid team at this point. Actually, they had um, Robin Lopez, Aldridge, Batum, Matthews, and um, Dame Time. So they really didn't need much, but I guess you'd say their weakest position was center. So I'm going to say they go to Cody Zeller here. Um, he's a guy who's like pretty consistently throughout his career averaged between 10 to 12 points a game and been pretty good for his team, so I think he makes sense for them. Philly at 11. Looking at this team, who could they use here? Who could they use? I think, uh, this was a time when they had nothing, so I think to me, it makes sense for them to pick up Tim Hardaway Jr. I mean, they could use the offense. He's a pretty good offensive player, streaky but still good offensively. Um, yeah, I like him, even though a lot of people are sour on him, but I like him a lot. 12 OKC. I always think that they could still use a shooting guard in this spot because their shooting guards are pretty weak. For me, it's between KCP and Robertson. I'm going to go with KCP just because I think his health holds up quite a bit better than Robertson, and he's a much better offensive player than Robertson. And I don't think Robertson's better defensively enough to warrant taking him over KCP. Dallas at 13, they originally took Olynyk and traded him to the Celtics here. So really, this is the Celtics pick. So I'm gonna think of who they would take, and to me, um, it's coming down to Jang, Olynyk, and Robertson as my last 3 guys I'm gonna be taking here. I'm gonna say out of those 3, um, I'll say Olynyk is still the best dude to take. I think he, I the more I think about this, I think he he can kind of give you exactly what you need if you're the Celtics, in that you were just losing Garnett and you needed a big guy down low. And Kelly Olynyk, not good defensively, but offensively, he's pretty diverse for this team. So I think he makes sense. Minnesota at 14. I know it says Utah, but they traded this pick with Minnesota, or the Timberwolves traded this pick with Utah. So this is Minnesota picking. And I think Gorgie Jang still makes sense for them. They still needed a center at that spot, so I think he still makes sense. And Milwaukee at 15, I'm going to say that they take Andre Roberson instead of. I think the really other option was Shabazz here or Mason Plumlee, but I think that Roberson makes the most sense. So there you have it, guys. Those are my top 15 redrafts of the 2013 NBA redraft. Let me know what you guys think below. Did I pick somebody too high or too low? Do you think that you have a better order? If so, leave it in the comments. I'd love to read them. And that's really all I got for today, guys. So again, hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.